So what is meant by constraints? Constraints is nothing but, as the name indicates, you can restrict some you can restrict the entry of the data into a table. You can restrict the entry of a data. Let's say I have a table, okay? I have an ID and I have some name. So let's say this is the employee ID and this is, and I have some salary. Okay, salary as a column. Now there are a couple of scenarios here. There is a one more table called department, DEPT, because this is the best example. So you'll have the department ID, employee ID assigned to the department. Okay. Now first I'll have the employee, because department ID cannot be created without the employee, right? You should have employee, then only you'll assign that employee to a department. I'll have employee, the name is A and the salary is 20,000. Now here you can see there are many scenarios. If someone one comes and gives the employee ID as 101 to employee B, it should not happen. So you have to restrict the data here. Okay. Something you might have your date of birth. Huh? So here, and one more thing is that, like, here 20,000 the salary. So sometimes they might press like 3 zeros more. It should not happen. So you can restrict the salary to be in between this some range. You can give some range, and you can always, you can if someone enters the salary out of that range, so automatically it will throw an error. The same thing, if someone enters the employee ID which is already there, then it throws an error. So for that we need to create some type of constraints. So based on that we can restrict the entry of the data. Same with the department ID. So here we got the department ID as 101, 02, 03. So in the department ID, and let's say this is employee ID 102. In the employee ID 101 we entered good. 102, second department we enter 102. If you enter employee 103, actually that employee ID 103 doesn't exist in the employee table. So it should throw an error. Okay. So in order to restrict the data, or to make this like you can call it as data integrity. Okay. So you are not allowing to store the bad data in a table. And here see in the department, let's say date of birth, or let's say date of joining. Date of joining, they have to give the date. Let's say if they are, whenever someone joins, they have to give the date. Let's say if they don't enter the date, by default it should take the date on which the record was entered into the table. Okay. So for this purpose, SQL Server has different types of constraints. Okay. SQL Server has different types of constraints. So basically the constraints are divided into different groups. First one is the domain constraints. Next one you call it as entity constraints. Next one is a referential integrity constraints. Sorry. Okay. So in the domain constraints, basically table is nothing but the combination of columns and rows. So you'll have the columns here and the table name. Okay. Here table is nothing but the entity and the columns are nothing but the domains. Table is nothing but the entity, column is nothing but the domains. If you create a constraint that affects only the columns of a particular table, like if you create a constraint on the columns, then it is nothing but the domain constraints. Okay. If you create the constraints at the table level, then it is nothing but the entity constraints. Referential integrity is nothing but if you create a constraints relating two tables, then it is nothing but the referential integrity constraint. Okay. So here domain constraints are categorized into three types. You can call it as a check constraint, default. Next is the rules. Very rarely you will be using the rules, but you will be using check and default. Entity constraints is nothing but primary key, unique key. Referential integrity constraint is nothing but foreign key. Okay. Primary key and unique key, and referential integrity is nothing but the foreign key. So here domain constraints are nothing but check constraint, default constraint, and rules. Entity constraints is nothing but the primary key and unique key. Referential integrity is nothing but the foreign key. So we'll go one by one. Okay. Until then, I'll give an high level description. Check constraint is nothing but whenever if you have something called like there is a table, and table has some salary, and if you want to check whenever someone enters the salary, or let's say there is a table, there is a column called date of birth, you don't want the date of birth to enter like 50 days, like 100 days before as of 2010. You don't want to enter the bad like let's say it is something called an insurance company don't want to enter the people who has the date of birth like as of today they should not be greater than 70 years. Okay, the age should not be greater than 70 years. Then it is what is today's date? Today is nothing but 2015. Okay, then 70 days prior to this, 70 days prior to this is nothing but 2045. Right, sorry, 1945. Okay, so you can create one constraint saying that whoever enters the date today, it should not be greater than 70 years of age. It means that you can create a check constraint on that. Default is nothing but whenever a person is joining and there is a column called join date. Okay, if I by default whenever someone joins, whoever is entering that record, they should enter the join date. Let's say they might have forgotten that, they might have ignored it, or they might have overseen that, or they might have missed it. So then what happens, the system should automatically take the today's date, whatever date was there at that time, it should automatically take that date. So you can use the default constraints. Rules is nothing but, let's say check constraint is nothing but you are creating one check constraint saying that the salary should be between, or the date should be between this, that year of current date minus the date of birth should not be greater than 17 years, something, you write some condition. That is only at the table level. If you want to use the same condition for all the tables that you have, then what happen, you have to, generally we will create these constraints on each and every table, but instead of that you can create a rule. That rule, you can include that rule in all the tables directly. So this is a, so rules is nothing but just you will have something called shade. Check means you check constraint or something. This is you are creating on the table level, but rules means it will be created, that will be shared by all the tables. Okay, that rule will, you will just include that rule to all the tables on particular column, then automatically it will be it will be implemented in all the tables, like whichever table you want you can implement it. Next is entity constraint. Entity constraint is nothing but primary key and unique key. Whenever you want to store the data, like uniqueness, whenever you want to store the data in it, yeah, I'm recording that. If I exit this, yeah, it is recording. Okay, so primary key and unique key is nothing but, if you want to, if there is a column, as I said, employee ID. Okay, in the employee ID, I don't want to add the duplicate records. That is nothing but the primary key. Okay, like it will not allow the duplicate records. Unique key also will not allow the duplicate record. But the difference between the primary key and unique key is that unique key will accept only one null value. It can accept null value, but primary key will not accept the null value. I'll show it to you. Okay. Then what is the referential integrity? As I said, I have a department table here. Whenever I insert the employee ID in the department table, first by default the system I should not insert the employee ID which are not there in the employee table. System should not allow. For this purpose, you will create a referential integrity on this column, saying that whoever enters the data on this column, first you have to check that record in the employee table. If not, if that record is not there in the employee table, then just throw an error. Okay, everyone is clear with this? Yeah. So now what we are going to do, we are going to do first with the domain constraints. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll create table. I'll add the table name called EMP. EMP will have, employee will have something called the EMP ID as integer. Next I'll have EMP name as varchar 100. EMP salary as decimal. No one will have salary in the sense, right? Integer. Next join date or enter date. Date and manage ID. Else I'll not go up to that. Okay, this is fine, I think. So now employee ID is there. Okay, I don't want to duplicate the employee ID. And next name, this employee salary. Okay, we have the employee salary. What I want to do is that if someone like if someone enters the employee salary greater than some amount, then I don't want that to happen. Then I'll write check EMP sal between 1000 and 20 lakhs. Okay, this is for the check constraints. Next I'll give default get date. Okay, if someone doesn't enter the data or date, automatically it will take the get date. Okay, EMP sal is nothing but it will take more. It will not allow you to enter the value beyond that range. Next, what do I want is that we have the check constraint, we have this one. Okay, or else what I want to do is that not the employee ID. Yeah, manager ID. Manager is nothing but integer, same. Okay. Yeah. Or else what I'll do, I'll not give the manager, I'll not go with the complex example. I think you'll be good with only this. Okay. So now I'll create a table. I have created it. What I want is that I want to create a primary key on this EMP ID. Okay. Primary key on the EMP ID. So what, yeah, I think I'll create the manager ID. That should fine. Integer, yeah. Yeah. So now what is my scenario is it? So you might guys know that. See, manager, I have the two columns. I got the employee ID and the manager ID. I got the EMP ID and manager ID. Okay. Next, I have employee ID 101. Who is the manager ID? Manager is nothing but he himself is an employer, right? Okay. Manager ID is nothing but he himself is an employer. So let's say he's a manager. So he is not having any manager to them. So manager is null. 102 is the employee. 102 employee manager is nothing but the 101 employee ID. 103 manager is also 101. 104 manager is nothing but the 102. Something like that. Okay. So here in the manager ID you can allow only one null value. And one more thing, you can allow only one null value. In the employee ID you can allow it will not allow any of them like multiple, it will not allow any of the null values. Okay. So now whenever I enter the manager ID, what system should do? It should check whether that manager ID is present in the employee ID or not. If not, then it should throw an error. Okay, so that kind of things. So what I am going to do, employee ID I am going to make primary key. I can give directly the primary key, and this one I'll make the foreign key. Foreign key references. Oh, references same EMP table, EMP ID. Okay, what I am doing here, whatever the manager ID I am getting, whenever someone inserts the manager ID, what I want to do is that I want to check whether that manager ID is already there in the employee table or not. That's what I am doing here, reference. And here EMP ID I am creating the primary key. So whenever if you try to enter duplicate data, it will not allow you to do. I have created, there is already object called EMP. So what I'll do, I'll drop the table and recreate it. Okay, now I'm creating. A table will be created. So, sorry, I have created the table in the master database, so I'll drop it again. Or else, which database do I need now to connect it? I'll use a SQL class. So instead of going here, I'll just write it here and use. That's done. Automatically it will be created in the SQL class. Done. Automatically it got changed here. So now I'll try to insert one by one. We'll see, first we'll see the primary key, next we'll see the manager ID, next we'll see the employee ID, next we'll see the join date. One by one I'll show the examples. Insert into EMP table. I'll have values. Okay. I'll have the values EMP ID 101, comma, manager ID I'll insert null. Okay. Next I'll go with the EMP name. EMP name I'll give A. Next I'll go with the EMP salary as 2000. Next I'll insert the join date as get date. Get date means it will insert the current date, or else I'll give some other date. I don't want to confuse you. 2015-01-23. Okay, this is the date I have given. So I inserted the value, done. I'll do the select star from EMP. Now I'll get the data here. See. Now this is the primary key. Now I'll show the same primary key again. I'll insert the 101 and I'll add the manager ID as null. I'll insert the name as B. I'm trying to insert the same 101 ID again. Then it will throw an error. See, violation of primary key constraint means saying that cannot insert duplicate key in object dbo.emp. That's the issue. Okay. So now what I'll do, I'll name this as 102. Then I'll give the manager as 101. Okay. For 102 manager is 101, name is B, and the salary is something called like 1500. He also joined on 25th. Now I'll execute the query. Now I'll see the output. I got it. Okay, 102, manager ID is 101. Now I'll try to take the same record and I'll insert one more ID with 103 where the manager ID will be 104. ID is 103. Okay, so when you insert 103, it is unique because there is no other ID with the 103, it will allow. When I try to insert the 104, what I did for the EMP ID, whenever you manager ID, what I did, whenever you try to insert some record, what it does, it goes to the EMP table. EMP table is nothing but the same table itself, and check whether that ID is there in the EMP ID column or not. If not, then it will throw an error. Now see, because previously 101, see, I have inserted null. Okay, here when I took 101, 101 is already inserted, so that's the reason it allowed you. But 104, there is no record, right? Now it will throw an error for me. See, conflicted with the foreign keys, same table constant. FK. The conflict occurred in the database SQL class table EMP, column EMP ID. Okay. It is nothing but there is an issue, means you can't insert. It clearly says it's a foreign key. Foreign key is nothing but you are relating something to some table, then you need to come out. Then if I give 102, yes, it will allow. There will be no issue. Okay, this is for the foreign key constraint. Now I'll go with the check constraint. What is check constraint? I have given the check constraint of range between 1000. I'll keep this one side so that you guys can see that clearly. Okay. So what did I say for the check constraint? I said the salary should not be between 1000. Salary should always be between 1000 and 20 lakhs. Now what I'll do, I'll add some employee ID 104. Okay. Now I'll have the manager ID same. This will be the name will be C. Instead of I'll give as 100. Then let's see what happens. It will show check constraint violation. See. Okay, you can't insert the values out of this range. You should always insert the value between this range only. Okay, that is an example for the check constraint. So it will not allow, it will throw an error. Now what I will do is that I'll insert some data, insert into to show the default value. So whenever I insert the data, right, so you can see, since I am inserting data, always I'll have the date value here. See, always it has a date. But now what I'll do, insert into table name is a EMP, and I'll insert the columns as EMP ID, comma manager ID, comma EMP name, salary. Yeah, AMP salary, that's it. These are only 3 records I am going to implement. Manager. Oh, sorry. I wrongly spelled it. Manager. Instead of NA, I missed it in the table. See here. Okay. I'll use the same thing and nothing to worry. So I'll have here insert into values. For EMP ID, I'll insert as 105. For manager ID is 102. Next, I'll insert the salary as like 1200. That's it, done. I'm not inserting any date. This is ID is 105. So the record will be the record will be inserted. Oh, there are more columns. Oh, manager ID. Oh, EMP name. Sorry, D. That's it. Okay. See, there are more columns is nothing but I'm giving 3 values. I have given the 3 values in insert, but the columns are 4. That's the reason I thrown an error. Okay. Now I have modified it. Now I'll add one more column here. Done. So now I'll insert it. See, I'm not giving the date. I'm not giving the date. So one record will be inserted. But now when I see this, now it will show me that. See, automatically it took today's date. Today's date is nothing but 2015 0820, right? So automatically by default it took today's date. Okay. So what are the constraints we covered? We covered the primary key constraint. We covered the foreign key constraint. We covered the check constraint. We covered the default constraint. Nothing but we covered the most of the part. Foreign key. Now I am referencing the foreign key to this table, right? Now I'll have one more foreign key table. Create table department. Then I'll have the department ID integer. Next I'll have the EMP ID. That's it, integer. So now whenever I enter the EMP ID, first that EMP ID should already be there. It should be there in the table before itself. If I enter the wrong EMP ID, that EMP ID doesn't exist in the EMP table, then it should throw an error. So that's the reason I'll give here. Foreign key references EMP table EMP ID. Okay, that's it. I'll give it here. So department table has been created. Done. Now what I will do, the same like the foreign key constraint you given on the same table. Now this is nothing but the self-reference foreign key because you are referencing the same table. But in the department I am referencing to the other table. Okay. So now when I try to insert the values, insert into DEPT. I'll give the values for the department ID as 1 and the EMP ID is 101. So it will be inserted. Okay. So I'll write here select star from. So I'll execute it. So you'll have the department ID 1 and EMP ID is 101. So here if I insert some EMP ID 111, which is not at all there in the EMP table, right? It will throw an error, foreign key constraint, that's it, nothing. Okay. So we have the primary key. So now when I go to the table and see them, always you can differentiate which one is the primary key. By default, you can differentiate which one is the primary key. When I click on the EMP table, when I go to the columns, you can see. By default, the key which is highlighted, that is nothing but the employee, it is the primary key, which is like shaded one, it is nothing but the manager. It is nothing but the foreign key. If you see the department, in the department table, we don't have any primary key, but we got the foreign key. That is nothing but the EMP ID. So if I see it here, sorry, columns, then see EMP ID will be like shaded one. So if you want to see the keys, then when you click keys, then you can see all the keys here. If you want to see anything constraints, see department I have not given any check constraint, other constraint, right? Now when I go to EMP and see the constraints, then I should be able to see the check constraint and default constraints. Okay, that's how it works for the with the constraints. So now I have covered most of the constraints because I have covered the primary key, I have covered the foreign key, I have covered the check constraints, default constraints. The two constraints are left are the rules and unique key. So I'll give two tables. Okay, I'll create one table. Create table. I'll give the table name called EMP or some EMP unique. And I'll have the EMP ID as integer as a primary key. I'll have one more column with the EMP ID 1, that will be the integer. And I'll give the constraints as unique. Okay, I'll execute this. See, I've given the constraint as unique. So what it is going to happen here is that, see what I said, primary key constraints and unique key constraint both are same, right? Primary key constraint, unique key constraint both are same. Like both has the same purpose, like it will not allow the duplication of the data. But what is the exact purpose, exact reason for that? See now, I'll have the table insert into I'll give the EMP ID as 101 and EMP ID 1 I'll give it as 102. Okay, it will allow. Okay, I'll hit here. So the data, it will allow the data. Sorry, I have given some characters 02. It will allow it and there will be no issue. Now what I'll do, for the same table, I'll try to insert a null value into the primary key column. Null value. Cannot insert a null value into the primary key. Okay, but I can insert null value into the foreign key. Sorry, unique key. I can insert the null value into the unique key. Oh, same record, right? 101. I'll give something called 103 and the unique key. Then what happens? It will not throw any error. But if I try to insert the same unique value again, if I try to insert the null value into the same table again, then it will throw an error, because as a unique name I like says that unique is nothing but it should not have a duplicate record, because already you inserted one null value. That is a uniqueness. If you try to insert another null value, it will assume it has a duplicate record, because already the table has a null value, so it will not accept any other null value. So it means that unique is nothing but unique will accept only one null value, but primary key will never accept a null value by default. Unique key will accept only one null value, but primary key will not accept any null values. Okay, that is the difference between unique key and primary key. But whenever I create a table, a unique on the tables, so basically here always index is created on the tables. Whenever I create a primary key, a cluster index is created on the table. I am refreshing it. I'll go and see its table name is EMP unique. Now when I open it, when I open the indexes, now you can see a primary key is created on the primary key column. By default, indexes is created on the primary key column. If I open this index script indexes, then you can see it will be created on the primary key column. EMP ID is the primary key. See, okay, I'll explain about the index later on. If I open this one, then automatically this index has been created on the EMP ID1 table column name. Sorry, EMP ID1 column name. See, so whenever you have the primary key, by default cluster index is created. Whenever you have a unique key, by default non-cluster index is created on that. And next we have one more concept called rules. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do with the rules is that, so let's say I'm having some phone number on a table. I'm having some phone number. So what I'll do, create rule, and I'll have the rule number as phone number. Okay, then what I'll do as, then I'll give it here at the rate of phone number unknown, means phone number should not be anytime unknown. Or what I want to do, I don't want to enter any of the like where the length of phone number should not be less than 10. It should be 10 characters. Length of phone should always be 10 characters. So I'm good with this. Yeah, this is only one I'll have it. I'll add as a rule. Okay, I'll create the rule. Rule has been created. Oh. Hmm. No, I think that should not be that one. Phone number, I think instead of PH. Okay, yeah, I think we should have here one. Yeah, I'm checking the condition. Okay, both of them are equal to 1 or not. Actually, I always get confused with the brackets. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I got it. I should have the same number. I think this is the issue. So what it's showing? Mm-hmm. Let's add one condition here. See, this is like anything like how can we have the condition in the bracket, right? Yeah, this is again like see, this is what we have written at the beginning, so we are good with that. There is no issue with that. That's it. We should be having that bracket out of that. So we are good. Okay? Because I am giving that condition inside that. Before checking the length only, I am giving equal to 10. This is what I did here. So that's the reason it was throwing an error. Okay. Equal to 10. Okay? This is what I did. So it should not be given, right? It should be given after length. Done. So now I am creating a rule. Done. I have created, okay. Rule contains more than one variable. Oh, phone number. Because I should have the same number of same variable names. Done. I'll execute it. Now the rule is created. Now let's say I create a table where I'll have the table name was called test rule. Then I'll have it as a phone number. Then I'll have it as an integer type. So now I'll have a table now. Table has been created. What I can do, I can just create a rule, append the rule on the table. So in order to create a rule on the table, so just you'll have the sp append bind rule. Okay. Then what is the rule name? Phone number. Right? I'll create the rule name. Done. And where do I want to bind it? I want to bind it to a table. So which table it is? Test rule dot which column it is? Phone number. That's it, done. So now when I execute this store procedure, automatically it's a nothing but the check constraint type. So if I insert anything wrong data, insert into table name test, okay, test rule, and I'll have something called phone number 1 2 3 4. Done. That's it. If I insert in do it, it will throw in raw. Oh, sorry, values. So now if I do this, it will throw an error. That's it. Oh. Okay, I have given sorry, because here I have given the varchar as integer, and in the rule it is a varchar. So that's the reason it's throwing an error. So I'll alter the phone number to varchar. Alter test rule, alter table. Now I'm altering the existing column. Alter column. Column name is phone number. Phone number, I want to alter it to the varchar of 10. Done. That's it. Alter the table. Now I'll try to insert the value into the table. 1 2 3 4. Then it will throw an error because there is a rule. Now what I'll do, see now when I want to, let's say this rule has been implemented on hundreds of tables. I want to have this phone number length of 10 on hundreds of tables. Then you create some check constants and something done. Now I want that this rule, instead of the 10 characters, I want it to be like 12 characters. Then you have to go to 10 tables and then you have to do it. hundreds of tables and then you have to do it. But here now, I'll just go to the rule and I'll modify it. Automatically it will be reflected. I'll show it to you. 567890. This is my number. When I insert it, yes, it will insert because it's a correct data. Now, I want to insert one more 12 digit number. It will throw an error. Okay, for that one, yeah, sorry. I given the varchar as 10 characters, just I'll give the varchar as 20 characters. That's why you throw an error, done, 20 characters. Now, I'll execute that one again. 12 characters one, then it will throw an error. Rule has been imposed. So for this one, if I want to allow the 12 characters one, I'll go to the rule, alter the rule. So here, that's it. Drop rule and recreate it. Oh, sorry. Actually, I need to unbound that rule from here. Actually, I should be able to alter the rule. Okay, yeah. First, what I'll be doing is that I need to unbind the rule. The same rule I'll be unbinding from this table. Okay. So how to unbinding is just sp unbind rule. This is a bind rule, so just I'll do unbind rule. That's it. I'll execute it. The rule will be unbinded. Does not exist or do you have permission? Oh. What's happening here? Oh, sorry. Yeah. And if I unbinding, just I can give the table name. That's it. So automatically, whatever rules I have on the table, the all rules will be unbinded. Now, I'll drop the rule. Drop it. Control Z. Create the rule with other one. 12 characters. Then that's it. So now, when I insert the data of 12 characters, now it will accept me. Okay. This is for the rules. So we have covered all the constraints, including the rules. So we have covered because basically very rarely you will be using rules, but most of the part we will be using a check constraint, domain constraint, check constraint, default constraint, and primary foreign key constraint. Okay, unique constraint. But rule very rarely you will be using the rule. In case if you want to have some property embedded in all the tables, like same property should be in all the tables, then you will create a rule and you will assign that rule to all the tables. Okay, so everyone is clear with these constraints? Okay, so I'll give you 2 minutes, just rewind this. Whatever I covered, just go ahead and rewind with that. Okay, only 2 minutes. It's 9, right? 9 2.